Hi everyone. Okay, so in today's lesson we're going to talk about the major scale, which is one of the most important building blocks of Western music. Typically, scales start and end on the same note. So for instance, if we have a C scale, we start and end on a C, and we have an A scale and we start and end on an A. And when we refer to the scale, we also use that start and end note as its name. Now, when a scale has all 7 letters of the musical alphabet, it's called diatonic. There are 2 primary scales that we use more than the rest. There are more than 2, but for the most part, most music that you hear will fall into one of 2 categories, either the major scale category or the minor scale category. So here's what a major scale sounds like. Sounds kind of full and bright. And then the minor scale. It's a little darker, maybe a little sadder. You really hear a difference starting at the 3rd note, right? Versus listen to the 3rd note here. It feels kind of more uplifting in major. So our job is to learn how to construct these scales. And the great thing about the scale is that it's this building block for all the chords in a song, how the melody moves in the song. So it's a great first step to constructing your own pieces of music. So let's start off by just writing out a kind of generic scale with no changes, no alterations. And what we're going to want to look for is a specific pattern of half steps or whole steps in between each of these notes. If we want to get that major scale sound, we need to have this pattern of whole and half steps. So remember, a whole step is 2 keys on the piano, and a half step is just 1. So let's see what happens with this C scale. So we need this pattern to show up, and I'm just going to mark those notes onto the keyboard, and we'll check each whole or half step as we go from the left to the right. And usually you want to build scales from lowest note up to highest note, so in order from left to right. So let's look at that first C. Here's our C note, and then we need a whole step to be up to D. 1, 2 keys, that is a whole step. And then from D to E, we also need a whole step. That second spot needs to be a whole step. So D, 2 keys up, does land on just a regular E. Then we need a half step in our 3rd place between the notes. So whole step, and the next should be a half step. And it's just working out that E and F are a half step since there's no black key between them. Then we need another whole step, and we're going to need 3 whole steps in a row. So let's check F, 2 keys to G, 2 keys to A, 2 keys to B. Those are all whole steps. And then our last place from B back to C where we started is a half step. So it turns out that the C scale works out in the pattern without any special effort on our part. So if you have all white keys in your song, or your scale has no sharps or flats or any alterations in it, you probably have a C major scale. Now, no other start note will be this easy. Every other one will require some sort of change in order to get the right pattern to work. So it happens to work out on the white keys going from C to C, but it's not going to work out if we try a different set of notes. So let's try and build a G major scale. And as you can see here, it's already mostly built for us, right? So we're going to have to go from G to G, and here's those notes. Now we want whole, whole, half, 3 wholes and a half. And you'll see, as is marked in red here, that one of these notes is going to cause us a problem. So G to A worked, A to B is a whole, B to C was a half, C to D whole, D to E whole, E to F needs a whole step. That's our 3rd whole step in our pattern, but we don't have it because E to F is only a half. So what we need to do is we need to change one of those notes. So either E or F. Only one will work because E can't change it's already locked in with the whole step between D and E. If I change E, it will then change its relationships to the D, which was working fine. So we need to make sure we change the new note that's being added. And what we need to do is take that F and make it a whole step from E. So I can do that by raising the F with a sharp, right? So E to F was 1 key, and I need a whole step, which is 2 keys. So I can just take that F and raise it slightly by 1 key to get F sharp. Now I have a whole step here, and it's working out great. And then it actually turns out that because of that sharp, here's our F sharp now, we've got our whole step what we needed, and it turns out that having the F sharp also made sure that we have a half step going from F sharp to G, the end, the last part of our pattern. So let's build a few of these and see if we can get used to constructing these things. So here is an example, and this we want to create an A major scale because our start and end note are A. That names the scale. And we need to apply our whole step, half step pattern to these notes. So let's just go one spot at a time. So I need a whole step for my first 2 letters. So do A and B work out? Yes, they do. A to B is a whole step. B to C is a half if I don't have any changes. That's not what I want. I want a whole step. So I need to raise that C up by a half step in order to give me that whole step that's required for the pattern. Let's check the pattern real quick where it is just whole to half. Wait, that doesn't have that happy uplifting thing. Let's check it if we do have the right whole step. So I'm going to raise that C up to C sharp so that I have the whole step part of the pattern. And let's hear what that sounds like. Ah, that's sounding more like do, re, mi, right? That's what the major scale is that do, re, mi scale you may have heard. Okay, so now that we know we need a C sharp here for this to work, then we need a half step. So from C sharp, which is what we have now, to D, oh, that's just 1 key. So that's working out just fine. That half step worked. Let's check our next space from D to E. Oh, that one works fine as well. So D to E is a whole. That whole worked out. Next whole should be E to F. We can already see that that's going to be a problem. We're going to need to raise the F. Now we have a whole step, 2 keys there. So we're going to need that F sharped. Then we have a whole step again. F to G is a half step. We need it to be a whole step, 2 keys. So it's going to have to go to G sharp, as you can see here. And then finally, whoopsie, we need a half step at the end. G sharp to A, the A key. And now we're set. We have the right pattern. So what we should see in an A major scale is A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. And let's check. And there it is. B to C sharp. C got raised to create that whole step. There's the F sharp and G sharp making everything work out. Here we go. Again, building from left to right, and this is now an F scale. So I'm going to start on F, and I'm going to check the first place. So it should be a whole step. Is F to G on my keyboard a whole step? Yes, it went up 2 keys. Then G to A. Then there's another whole step. That's exactly what I want. A to B. That is another whole step. But what I'm required to have for the sound that I want is a half step. So what can I do? I can't change the A because that's already locked in with the notes that are below it, right? We can only change the new note. So I'm going to have to take that B and move it here. The symbol I need for that is to the left, lowering by 1, which is a flat. So I need B flat here. And then from this point on, we need 3 whole steps. Let's check. So 2 keys, 2 keys, 2 keys, and then we need a half step at the end, 1 key. And I'm good. The one change I have in an F major scale is that I had to lower that B to a flat. So one more D flat. So this one actually starts on a flat. So this time while I'm building, I'm just going to actually put in the start and end notes. They should always be the same. And I know that'll help me remember if I see this flat on both ends to actually put the flat right from the beginning. So I have a D flat to a D flat, and now I need to fill in from left to right all the space in between. So D flat up to E. What do we have right now? 1, 2, 3 keys. That's bigger than a whole step. What I need is a whole step, right? I need my first place. So this is too large right now to go from D flat to regular E. I need to bring the E down closer to the D. And there we go. So now I have D flat to E flat. And now I need to go up the next letter in my alphabet, which is F. That's here. Does that work? Oh, yes, it does. I have a whole step. Now I have my 2 whole steps taken care of. Now I need a half step. So F to G is another whole step, too big again. I need to bring my G down to G flat to make that work. So now I have a half step here, and now I need my 3 whole steps in a row. 2 keys, 2 keys, and 2 keys. G flat to A, which would have been too big, so A got lowered. A to B would have been too big. A flat to B would have been too big because 1, 2, 3 keys. So I brought the B down to make it just 2 keys apart, whole step. And then we have another whole step to C. So the regular C worked. And then I, at the end, have a D flat here, which is my last half step that's required. And now I know that this scale will sound like the major scale because of where I've placed the flats. Let's hear this one just for the sake of having that extra feedback. I'm going to use quarter notes here just to make things easy. And I need a flat. So here I go. I'm going to place a D flat here. There's my first note. The next note I need is E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, just C, and then D flat. And then let's hear this. And it sounds like do, re, mi, right? Sounds very kind of happy, uplifting, bright. That's that major scale sound. Cool, let's just do a little more practice of this. So let's create some scales in this exercise. And I'm going to zoom in a little. All right, so I'm going to use the right and left arrow to move around in here and press up for a sharp and down for a flat. I think that's how this works. Cool, so first thing I have is it says to make this an E flat major scale. So first thing I'm going to do is actually put the E flats on both ends because I know that's how it needs to start and end. Now I can start checking my spaces. Now hopefully you'll be able to do this eventually in your head rather than using the piano keyboard, but we're going to mark them on the piano keyboard for now. So here is E flat. So does E flat to F work? Let's check. That is a whole step. Remember what our pattern needs to be, right? So our pattern is 2 wholes and a half, then 3 wholes and a half. So we'll keep checking that pattern. So first one needs to be a whole, second one also needs to be a whole to G. So far it's working fine without any alterations. Now we have G to A, and that needs to be a half step. So here's A, G to A, that's 2 keys. That's a whole step. That needs to be a half. We need to bring the A down. Now we have A flat, so let's put that A flat in here. And now we have to deal with A flat to B. Looking on the piano, we can see that's one of those giant 3 key spaces, bigger than a whole step. So we want just 2 keys. So I'm going to take this down 1 again to make it flat and make it a whole step. Now I have B flat to C. That's also supposed to be a whole step, so it's working. And then we want C to D to be a whole step. That also works just fine. And now we're going to check our last point, which I probably could have put in there. We see that D to E flat, our ending point, is indeed a half step, and it works out. So I should be okay. And there it was. We already did D flat, but I'll just write one in. Let's see here. There we go. And another E flat. F, we already did that one too. Ah, G flat. I kind of want to do one with sharps. Okay. Nah, we already did G. F, D. Okay, good. Here's a new one. All right, let's do a D major scale. So starts and ends on D. We already have a D to start. No sharps or flats in the name, so it's not D sharp or D flat at the beginning. And then we need to walk up our pattern. So I'm gonna put a note for myself. Here's my first note, and I'm gonna have to go to E, D to E. So that is a whole step, as it should be. E to F. Problem. We need a whole step here. We only have a half step. So how am I going to space this so that the F is a little farther away from the E, right? We need a space from E to F sharp to get that to be a whole step. So I'm going to place the sharp on this guy. And then let's check F sharp to G. F sharp to G is a half. That's exactly right. So whole, half. And now we need G to A and A to B. And I'm just going to tell you those are both whole steps. So G to A to B, all worked out just fine. Now B to C should be another whole step. What do I have? Half step. Okay, I've got to raise my C then so that it's a bigger space from B to C sharp will give me my whole step, right? And then we can check C sharp to D to end. Now let's just say that we forgot one of those. So let's play. You'll notice, so I'm going to play this without that C sharp that we know we need. So here it goes. Sounds fine. A little sour there, right? Now let's check it with the correct whole step there. Let's put the C sharp back and see what that C sharp sounds like now. So now we should have that clear do, re, mi kind of sound. Oh, and it sounds great, right? There's our nice D major scale. Let's do one more. Oh, perfect, another one with sharps. So we've done plenty of flats. Let's do one more with a sharp, and we should be good. So it's just E, it's not E flat or anything else like that. So our start note gets left alone, and then E to F right away presents a problem. That's a half step, but I know that the beginning of my pattern needs to be a whole step. So I'm going to take that F and raise it. So now I have an F sharp there. Then I need to deal with F sharp to G. That is also a problem. It needs to be a whole step. So I need to also raise the G. Then we need a half step. That works out just fine with what's here. A to B is a whole step. That's exactly what we want. B to C, another problem. We need a whole step here. This is a half step. I need to raise the C so that I get two keys there. So now it's C sharp. Let's check C sharp to D. That also needs to be a whole step, but it's not. C sharp to D is not working out quite right. I need to also raise the D, and then D sharp to E works just fine. So we need those four sharps in that E major scale. So hopefully that's making sense. You'll get really quick at thinking through these. Watch your start notes. Anytime you have a flat or a sharp in their name, make sure you're starting and ending also with that sharp or flat in the name. Otherwise, everything else you do will be a little bit off because your start point was off. Cool. So hopefully those are fun and easy, and I'll see you in the next one.